Some civilizations are built on stone. This one breathes with a river. The Nile moves through darkness, not quickly, not with urgency, just steadily. The current is constant, has been constant, will remain constant. The river flows because that is what rivers do. North, always north, toward the sea that lies beyond the horizon. You are on the water, not in a large vessel, something smaller. A boat made of reeds, papyrus bundled and bound. The boat floats easily, sits high on the water, moves with the current when you let it, responds to the pole when you guide it. The water is dark, black in the night, but not empty, not lifeless. The river holds everything: fish, crocodiles, plants beneath the surface, microorganisms, nutrients, silt. The river is ecosystem, is resource, is the reason everything else exists. The surface reflects the sky. Stars scattered across the darkness above appear scattered across the darkness below. The boundary between water and air is visible only where ripples disturb the reflection, where your boat creates waves that spread and fade. The stars are bright, brighter than you expect, with no city lights, no fires except the occasional distant torch. The sky shows itself fully, reveals the depth of space, the countless points of light. The band of the Milky Way stretching overhead like a river in the sky, mirroring the river on the earth. The moon is present, not full, a crescent, thin, but bright enough to cast faint light. Bright enough that the river becomes visible as surface rather than void. The light is silver, cool. It touches the water without warming it. You can hear the river, not roaring, not rushing. Just the soft sound of water moving, the gentle lap against the reeds of your boat, the slight gurgle where current flows around obstacles, the ambient sound of liquid in motion. Other sounds exist. Frogs, many frogs. Their calls rise from the reeds along the banks, rhythmic, overlapping, each frog announcing itself, claiming territory, seeking mates. The sound is constant, part of the river's voice. Birds call occasionally, night birds, water birds. You cannot see them, just hear them. Brief sounds, single notes, then silence returning. The birds are there, in the reeds, on the banks, living their lives in the darkness. The air is humid, heavy with moisture from the river. The humidity is noticeable, different from dry air. It settles on your skin, makes everything slightly damp. The air smells of water, of mud, of vegetation, the organic smell of a river ecosystem. But the air is also cooling. The day's heat has passed. The sun set hours ago. The desert that surrounds the river valley released its heat upward. The temperature dropped. Now the night is cool. Not cold, but comfortable. The kind of temperature that makes movement easy, that makes stillness pleasant. The river is wide here. You cannot see both banks clearly. The far bank is darkness, a suggestion of land. Perhaps the outline of palm trees against the slightly less dark sky, but mostly just the sense that the river has boundaries, that it flows between defined edges, even if those edges are not visible. Reed boats are tied along the near bank. You can see them, dark shapes, several boats, maybe a dozen, secured to posts or stakes, bobbing slightly in the current, empty. Their occupants have gone to shore, have finished their day's work, have left the boats to rest until morning. The boats are simple, bundles of papyrus reeds bound together, shaped into forms that float and move through water efficiently. The boats are not permanent, will eventually absorb water, will need to be replaced, but they are sufficient, have been sufficient for generations. You guide your boat past the tide vessels. The pole finds the river bottom. Not deep here, perhaps twice your height. The pole pushes against mud and sand. Propels the boat forward. You lift the pole. Move it. Push again. The rhythm is familiar, meditative. A torch burns on the distant bank. Small point of orange light. The flame moves slightly. Flickers, but continues burning. Someone has placed it there, for guidance perhaps, or simply because light in darkness serves purposes that do not need explanation. The torch is the only artificial light visible. Everything else is natural. Moonlight, starlight, the faint luminescence that sometimes appears in water where organisms create light through biochemical processes you do not understand, but can observe. You think about the river, about how it defines everything. The civilization that exists along its banks exists because the river exists. The water provides transportation, provides irrigation, provides fish, provides the annual flood that renews the soil and makes agriculture possible. Without the river, this would be desert, like the land on either side of the valley, sand and rock, uninhabitable except at rare oases. The river is the exception, the anomaly, the ribbon of life cutting through barrenness. But you do not think of it as an anomaly. To you, the river is normal, is the center, is the given from which everything else derives. The desert is the exception. The river is home. The Nile is constant. That is what you know, what everyone knows. The river flows, floods, recedes. The cycle repeats, year after year, generation after generation. The river can be trusted, is reliable, is the foundation on which life is built. The boat continues downstream. You do not paddle continuously, just occasionally, adjust direction. Mostly you let the current carry you. The river knows where it is going. You are simply moving with it. The reeds along the bank rustle, wind perhaps, or some animal moving through them. The sound is soft, brief, part of the ambient texture of the night. You look up. The sky holds your attention. The vastness of it, the clarity, the sense that you are seeing beyond the immediate, beyond the earth, into something larger. Something that puts the river and the land and your small boat into perspective. But even the sky is connected to the river. The stars that ancient people have watched for generations help navigate, help mark seasons, help understand when the flood will come. The sky and the river are linked. Both are part of the pattern that structures life. The current continues to carry you. The night continues to hold you. The river breathes beneath you, slow, steady, patient, eternal in a way that human life is not. You are part of it for this moment, this night, moving with the water, under the stars, in the darkness that is not empty, but full of life and sound, and the constant presence of the river that makes everything possible. The river begins to narrow, or perhaps you are simply moving toward the edge, toward the bank where land rises from water, where the river's domain ends and the settled world begins. The reeds become more dense, tall stalks rising from shallow water, papyrus. Growing in thick stands, the reeds create a border, a transition zone between open water and dry land. The reeds are as tall as a person, taller. Their seed heads sway slightly at the top. You can hear them, the reeds, the soft rustle as wind moves through them, as water moves around their bases, as birds move within them. The sound is different from open water, more contained, more layered. The boat moves between reed stands. The channel is narrower here. more enclosed. The reeds block the view of open river behind you, block the view of the bank ahead. You are in a corridor of vegetation, green during the day, dark and vertical now. Something moves in the reeds. You hear it, the splash of water, the rustling of stalks, large, maybe a crocodile, maybe a hippopotamus. You cannot see it, do not need to see it. You know the river holds these creatures. Know they are active at night. Know to be careful but not afraid. This is their territory as much as yours. The channel opens. The reeds fall away on either side. The riverbank is visible now. Rising gently from the water, not steep, not dramatic, just a gradual slope from water to land. Palm trees stand along the bank, silhouetted against the sky. Their trunks are straight. Their fronds spread at the top, the distinctive profile of date palms, planted or naturally occurring, you cannot tell, but present, marking the boundary between river and settlement. Structures appear, dark shapes, rectangular, low. These are buildings, homes, made of mud brick. The brick is the same color as the earth it was made from, brown, tan, nearly invisible in darkness except where moonlight catches edges, where form is defined by shadow rather than surface. The buildings are close to the river, built at the edge of the flood zone. Close enough for easy access to water, far enough to be safe when the annual flood comes and the river swells beyond its normal banks. You guide the boat toward a small dock. Wooden posts driven into the mud, planks lay across them. The structure is simple, functional, enough to tie boats, to step from water to land without wading through mud. The boat nudges against the dock, gently. The reeds compress slightly. The boat stops. You secure it with rope. Loop the rope around a post. Tie it. The boat will stay here, float through the night. Wait for morning, when it might be used again. You step onto the dock. The wood is rough, weathered. The planks are uneven. You feel the texture through your feet. The dock is stable, does not rock significantly. The posts are driven deep enough to hold. The air here is different from the open river, still humid, still carrying the smell of water, but mixed now with other smells. Smoke from cooking fires that burned earlier, dry earth, palm fronds, animal dung. The accumulated smell of human settlement. The temperature is noticeable, cooler than the day was. The mud brick buildings absorbed heat while the sun was high. Now they release it, slowly. The walls radiate warmth into the cooling night. The contrast between warm walls and cool air is pleasant. Oil lamps glow faintly in some structures, not many, a few. Small flames burning in clay vessels. The light they provide is minimal, just enough to illuminate a single room. Just enough to mark inhabited spaces. The light is orange, warm, steady. Through one doorway, you see movement, a shadow, someone inside, awake still, moving slowly, tending to something before sleep. The figure does not come to the doorway, does not acknowledge the river, just continues whatever task occupies them. The settlement is quiet, deeply quiet. The sounds of the river are still present. The frogs, the water, but muted now, background rather than foreground. The settlement itself makes little sound, just the occasional creak of wood, the soft movement of fabric in a doorway, the settling of structures as they cool. You walk along the bank, away from the dock, past the buildings. The path is dirt, packed hard by many feet, smooth in some places, uneven in others. Your feet know how to navigate it, even in darkness. Palm trees overhead create patterns. Their fronds block starlight in some places. Allow it through in others. You walk through alternating patches of slightly less dark and slightly more dark. The variations are subtle, but present. A small boat is pulled up on the bank, not floating, beached, left above the waterline. The boat is smaller than yours, a fishing boat perhaps, or a boat for crossing to the other bank when the river is calm. The boat is overturned, protected from rain that might come. Though rain here is rare, clay jars sit against a wall, large waist high. The jars are for storing water, or grain, or oil. The jars are practical, undecorated. Just functional vessels shaped by hands and fired in kilns. The clay is reddish-brown, would be visible in daylight, is only form in darkness. A donkey is tied near one of the buildings. You hear it before you see it, the soft huff of breath, the slight jingle of a tether. The animal is resting, standing, weight on 3 legs, the 4th leg relaxed. Donkeys sleep standing sometimes. Rest while remaining ready to move. The animal does not react to your presence, does not startle, is accustomed to people, to movement, to the rhythms of settlement life, just continues its rest. Breathing slowly, you think about the cooling, about how everything that was hot becomes less hot. The sand that was scorching during the day is now cool. The mud brick walls that were too hot to touch are now merely warm. The river that was tepid is now refreshing. The transformation happens every night. Heat rising, coolness descending. The daily rhythm of temperature. The humidity remains constant. The river ensures it. Water evaporates continuously, puts moisture into the air. The air never becomes as dry as the desert beyond. Even in the coolest part of night, the humidity persists, makes the air feel softer, makes breathing easier. Insects are active. You hear them more than see them, buzzing, chirping. The sounds of night insects that emerge when the sun is gone. Some are drawn to the oil lamps. You see them briefly when they pass through the light. Small bodies, wings, then back into darkness. The insects are not aggressive, not swarming, just present, part of the ecosystem. Some are eaten by bats that fly overhead. Some are eaten by frogs at the river's edge. Everything is food for something else. The pattern continues, night after night. You reach the edge of the settlement, where the buildings end and open land begins. Fields, agricultural plots. But nothing is growing now. The harvest is past. The fields are bare. Stubble remains from cut grain. The earth is dry, cracked, waiting for water. Beyond the fields, darkness, the desert. You cannot see it, but you know it is there. The boundary where irrigated land ends and barrenness begins, where the river's influence stops, where life becomes scarce and difficult. But that boundary is not here. Here is the riverbank, the settlement, the buildings cooling in the night, the palm trees, the docked boats, the sleeping people, the places where life clusters because the river makes life possible. You turn back toward the river. The water is still visible, still reflecting stars, still moving northward, still being the Nile, constant, reliable, the reason this settlement exists. The reason any settlement in this valley exists. The night continues, the cooling continues, the settlement rests, and the river flows past, indifferent, eternal, carrying water from somewhere far to the south toward the delta far to the north, connecting everything along its banks, making civilization possible through its simple, persistent presence. You move between the buildings now, walking through the spaces that during the day would be busy. would be filled with activity and voices and movement, but now are empty, silent, given over to night. The homes are built close together, not touching, but near. The spaces between them are narrow, just wide enough for a person to walk. The closeness is intentional, provides shade during the day, provides protection, creates community through proximity. The walls are thick, mud brick, each brick formed by hand, mud mixed with straw, pressed into wooden frames, left to dry in the sun. Then stacked, layer upon layer, bonded with more mud mortar. The walls are solid, heavy, built to last. The surface of the walls is smooth, not perfectly smooth, but smooth. Plastered with a thin layer of mud, the texture is visible even in darkness, where moonlight touches, where shadows define edges. The walls are pale, would be tan or light brown in daylight, are gray in moonlight. Some walls show cracks, thin lines where the mud has dried and contracted, where age has begun to show. The cracks are not structural, not threatening. Just the natural aging of mud architecture. The cracks will be filled eventually, repaired, maintained. The buildings require constant attention, but they endure. Doorways are rectangular openings. No doors visible on most. Perhaps the doors are pulled aside, or perhaps doors are not used. Privacy here is different, based on convention rather than barriers, based on the understanding that you do not enter where you are not invited. Through one doorway, you glimpse an interior courtyard, open to the sky, surrounded by rooms on 3 or 4 sides. The courtyard is the heart of the home, where cooking happens during the day, where work happens, where family gathers. Now it is empty, just swept earth and the walls surrounding it. Clay jars are everywhere, against walls, in corners, by doorways. The jars are storage, essential vessels. Water must be carried from the river and stored. Grain must be kept dry. Oil must be contained. Each household needs many jars. The jars accumulate, become part of the visual language of home. A mat is rolled and propped against a wall. Woven reeds. The mat is for sleeping, will be unrolled later, or has already been used and rolled again for storage. The mat is simple, provides a layer between body and ground, is sufficient. Stone grinding tools rest against another wall. A large flat stone, a smaller stone that rocks against it, for grinding grain into flour, for the daily work of food preparation. The stones are heavy, dark, permanent objects that pass from generation to generation. You find stairs, or rather a ladder, wooden poles with rungs, leading upward to the roof. The flat roof that is part of the living space, where people sleep during hot nights, where work happens, where life extends upward. You do not climb. The roof belongs to the family who lives here. Is private, but you can imagine what is there. Mats laid out for sleeping, perhaps someone already sleeping. Cool air above the heated walls. Stars visible without obstruction. The roof as bedroom. Another building shows a small courtyard through a gap. This courtyard has a tree, a palm or a fig, small, growing in the protected space, providing shade during the day, providing fruit, providing the presence of living green in the brown world of mud and sand. The tree is dark now, just a shape, branches reaching upward, leaves invisible, except where they block starlight. The tree adds to the architecture, softens it, connects the built environment to the natural world. You notice how quiet the homes are, how completely at rest. The day's work has ended. The cooking fires have been allowed to die to embers. The tools have been set aside. The people have retreated. to sleeping spaces. The homes hold their occupants, but reveal nothing. Day has ended. Stone and clay are cooling. That is the truth of it. The materials that were hot are becoming less hot. The mud brick absorbed heat all day, every surface that faced the sun. Now that stored heat is releasing, radiating into the night air. The walls will be cooled by morning. We'll begin the cycle again when the sun rises. The cooling is palpable. You can feel it if you place your hand on a wall. The warmth, not hot, not burning, just warmer than the air. The differential that drives the transfer of heat. The inevitable movement toward equilibrium. Between buildings, you find a grinding area, a shared space, multiple grinding stones. This is where women work during the day, grinding grain together, talking, sharing labor. The social life of the settlement ain't physical through shared workspace, but now the grinding stones are still, empty, waiting for morning when the work will resume, when grain will be ground, when bread will be made, when the daily rhythm will continue as it has continued for generations. A cat emerges from shadow, thin, moving with purpose. The cat is hunting. The settlement has mice, has rats. The grain storage attracts them. The cats reduce their numbers. The relationship is ancient. Humans provide abundant prey. Cats provide pest control. Neither side acknowledges the arrangement. It simply exists. Yike pauses, looks at you, eyes reflecting faint light, and continues. Disappears around a corner, returns to its hunting. The night belongs to cats as much as to humans, perhaps more. Cats own the darkness in ways humans never can. You notice the smell again. Smoke residue in clothing and walls. The organic smell of humans living close together. The smell of grain, of oil, of animals kept nearby. Not unpleasant, just present. The smell of life, of occupation, of place where people exist continuously. A small shrine is built into a wall, just a niche. A small statue inside, barely visible. The shrine is for household gods, for protection, for blessing. The religion here is practical, present, woven into daily life rather than separate from it. The shrine is empty of offerings now. Whatever was placed there during the day has been removed or consumed. The shrine is just space and stone and the statue that resides permanently, watching, or perhaps just existing. The interpretation varies by household, by belief, by individual. You reach a point where you can see the river again. Through a gap between buildings, the water is visible, still flowing, still reflecting stars, still being itself. The river is the constant. The buildings come and go, are built and decay, and are rebuilt. But the river continues. The homes are returning to the temperature of a night. The heat is nearly gone. By dawn, the walls will be cool. We'll need the sun to warm them again. The cycle is perfect, reliable. The architecture works with the climate, absorbs heat when heat is abundant, releases heat when cooling is needed. You think about the people inside, sleeping on mats, on rooftops, in courtyards, bodies at rest, breathing slowly, dreaming or not dreaming, recovering from the day's labor, preparing for tomorrow's labor. The sleep is necessary, essential. The body cannot continue without it. And the homes protect sleep, provide shelter, provide privacy, provide the enclosed space where vulnerability is acceptable, where consciousness can fade without fear, where the night can be surrendered to. The settlement continues its rest. The homes continue cooling. The night continues holding everything in its gentle suspension, and you move through it all. Observer, witness, present in the quiet that exists between the day that was and the day that will be. You have walked beyond the residential settlement. The buildings have thinned. The path has widened. The ground beneath your feet is different now. Not packed earth, stone, cut and fitted, paving that speaks of greater resources, greater intention. The temple complex rises ahead, not suddenly, not dramatically, just gradually becoming present as you approach. The scale increases. The buildings grow larger. The architecture becomes more deliberate, more permanent. A wall surrounds the complex. Stone, not mud brick, actual quarried stone, limestone perhaps, or sandstone. Eel stone that in daylight would be almost white. In moonlight appears silver gray. The wall is tall, higher than two people standing, higher than necessary for simple enclosure. Height as statement, as separation between sacred and common space. A gateway breaks the wall, an opening. No gate visible, just the passage through thick stone. The gateway is shadowed, dark, but accessible. You enter. Inside, the space opens. A courtyard, vast, paved with stone. The courtyard is empty, completely empty. No structures in the center, just open space, intended space. Space for gathering that is not gathering now. The stone beneath your feet is smooth, worn by countless footsteps, during ceremonies, during festivals, during the daily operations of the temple. But now it is just surface, reflecting moonlight where the light falls directly, dark where columns cast shadows. Columns line the courtyard, on all sides, massive columns. Stone cylinders rising from the ground, thick, much thicker than a person could wrap their arms around. Columns support a roof that extends along the perimeter, leaving the center open to sky. You approach one of the columns, stand beside it. The scale is overwhelming. The column rises far above you, 3 times your height, 4 times. The top is lost in shadow, but the form is clear. Cylindrical, vertical, permanent. The stone is cool. You place your hand against it. The surface is smooth, but not polished. You can feel slight irregularities, the marks of cutting, of shaping, but mostly smooth, cool. The stone has released most of its heat, has been in shadow for hours as the sun moved across the sky and set. Carvings cover the column. You can feel them more than see them. Raised surfaces, recessed surfaces, patterns, images, hieroglyphs, the written language carved into stone, stories, names, prayers. The column is not just structure, is also text. But the text is invisible now, will return with daylight. You move between columns. The spacing is regular. The rhythm is precise. Each column is equidistant from its neighbors. The pattern creates a colonnade, a covered walkway around the courtyard's perimeter. The roof above blocks starlight, creates deeper shadow. More carvings are visible on the walls behind the columns. Even in darkness, you can see them, or sense them. Reliefs, figures carved into stone, people, gods, animals, scenes depicting things you would understand in daylight, but are only suggested now. The carvings are everywhere. Every surface that can be carved has been carved. The temple is covered in images and text, is a 3-dimensional document, is architecture that communicates, that teaches, that declares. But at night, the communication is muted, invisible. The temple is just form and shadow. The courtyard is silent, deeply silent. No wind moves through it. The walls block wind. The enclosure creates stillness. The silence is not empty, is full of presence, the weight of stone, the scale of construction, the accumulated intentionality of thousands of hours of labor. You think about construction, about how these columns were quarried, how the stone was cut from living rock, how it was transported, likely by river, barges carrying stone, then lifted, set in place. The engineering required, the coordination, the sustained effort across years or decades. Each column represents resources, labor, organization, authority capable of directing that labor. The temple is not just religious space, is economic statement, political statement, the physical manifestation of concentrated power. But at night, the power is dormant. The temple serves no active function. The priests are absent. The ceremonies are not happening. The temple simply exists, massive, silent, waiting for morning when human activity will return and purpose will be assigned again. Stone holds heat by day, releases it slowly at night. That is true of all stone, but more true of this much stone. The massive blocks, the thick columns, the stone absorbed solar radiation all day, became hot, not surface hot, deep hot. The heat penetrated into the stone. Will take all night to release. So even now, hours after sunset, the stone radiates warmth, subtle warmth, not enough to heat the air significantly, but noticeable when you stand close, when you touch the surface. The stone is warmer than the night air, is giving what it stored. You walk deeper into the temple complex, through another gateway, into an inner courtyard, smaller, more enclosed. Columns here too, but closer together. The space more compressed, more intimate despite the monumental scale. A sanctuary is visible ahead, a building, not open to sky, fully roofed. The entrance is dark, a doorway leading into complete darkness. This is the inner temple, the Holy of Holies, the space most restricted, most sacred. You do not enter. The sanctuary is not for casual access, but you can see the doorway, can see the darkness within, can imagine the interior, small rooms, stone walls, oil lamps that burn continuously, statues of gods in the deepest chambers. But even that is imagination. The reality is darkness. The sanctuary reveals nothing, just holds its secrets, its sacred objects, its restricted spaces, waiting for priests, for rituals, for the functions that define it as temple rather than simply building. Statues stand in the courtyard, not many, a few, stone figures, human forms, or human-like forms with animal heads. The statues are large, life-size or larger. They face the sanctuary, face the inner temple, their backs to the outer world. One statue is visible in moonlight. The form is clear, seated, hands on knees, face forward. The features are stylized, not realistic, idealized. The face is calm, impassive. Statue does not react to night or day, to presence or absence, just sits, has sat, will continue to sit. The stone of the statue is different from the building stone, darker, harder, granite perhaps, or basalt. Stone that took more effort to work, stone that will last longer, stone that will outlast the builders, outlast the civilization, outlast memory. You think about time, about how old these structures are, how long they have stood, generations, many generations. The people who built them are long dead. Their children are dead, their children's children. But the stone remains, the columns stand, the temple endures, and will continue to endure. For how long, you cannot know, but longer than any individual life, longer than any reign. The stone is permanent in ways that flesh and power are not. The moon has moved across the sky. The shadows have shifted. What was illuminated is now in shadow. What was dark is now receiving moonlight. The temple transforms through the night, shows different faces, different aspects, the same structure but constantly changing based on angle of light. You notice birds roosting in the upper parts of the columns. In the recesses of the roof, the birds are silent, sleeping or nearly sleeping, just small bodies, warm bodies. Living things choosing the temple as shelter, finding safety in the monumental architecture. The birds do not care about sacred and profane, about temple and common ground. They simply find suitable roosting spots, protected from predators, sheltered from wind. The temple serves their needs as surely as it serves human needs, just different needs. You walk back toward the outer courtyard, retrace your path through the columns, the stone pavement, the enclosed space. The temple accepts your presence, does not resist, does not welcome, simply is. Existing regardless of who moves through it or why. The outer courtyard is as you left it, empty, silent, vast. The columns create their rhythm, the walls define the boundary. The open center receives moonlight. The temple continues being temple. You think about morning, about how different this space will be. Priests arriving, rituals beginning, offerings being made. The temple activating, becoming more than structure, becoming function, becoming the center of religious life, but that is hours away. For now, the temple rests. The stone cools, the shadows shift. The moonlight moves, and the massive architecture simply stands, patient, eternal, indifferent to the passage of hours, to the presence or absence of humans, to everything except the slow erosion of wind and sand and time. You have left the temple complex, walked beyond the walls, beyond the settlement, beyond the buildings and palm trees and the immediate presence of human construction. The fields stretch before you, dark, flat, extending toward a horizon you cannot clearly see. The fields are empty now, no crops growing. The harvest is past. The grain has been cut, threshed, stored. The fields show only stubble, dry stalks broken at ground level, scattered remnants of what was. The earth is dry, very dry. You can see cracks, fissures, where the clay soil has contracted, where moisture has evaporated and left voids. The cracks form patterns, irregular polygons, networks of separation, the earth pulling apart as it dries. You walk into the fields. The ground is hard underfoot, compressed. The stubble crunches when you step on it, brittle, dead. The organic matter that will eventually decompose and enrich the soil, but not yet. Now it is just remnants, evidence of the cycle that was and will be again. Irrigation channels cut through the fields, straight lines, deliberate, human-made waterways branching from the main river. The channels are dry now, empty, just depressions in the earth. Clay-lined trenches that held water during the growing season, that carried water from the Nile to the crops, that made agriculture possible in a place where rain is rare. The channels form a network. Primary channels, secondary channels. The water could be directed, controlled, allowed to flow where it was needed, blocked where it was not. The system is sophisticated, developed over generations. refined through experience and observation. But now the channels hold only air, only darkness. The water has been drained back to the river, or has evaporated, or has soaked into the earth. The channels wait, empty, ready to receive water again. When the time comes, you reach a basin, a low area, deliberately shaped. The basin is designed to hold water, to flood when the irrigation channels fill, to create a temporary pond where water can sit, can soak slowly into the earth, can provide sustained moisture for crops. The basin is dry now. The bottom is cracked. The clay shows the same polygonal pattern as the rest of the fields, but more pronounced, deeper cracks, wider separation. The basin dried last. Held water longest, now shows its dryness most dramatically. You think about the cycle, about how these fields transform. During the growing season, they are green, covered with grain. Barley or wheat, the crops grow tall, turn from green to gold, fill with seeds that will become food. Then harvest, the cutting, the gathering, the processing. The fields are cleared. The grain is stored. The fields return to brown, to dry earth, to waiting, and then the flood, the annual inundation. The Nile rises, swells beyond its banks. Water spreads across the floodplain. Across these fields, covers them completely, turns the fields into shallow lakes. The water sits for weeks, maybe months, then recedes, and leaves behind silt, rich sediment carried from far south. From the highlands where the river begins, black soil, fertile soil, soil that needs no fertilizer, that is renewed annually by the river, that makes Egyptian agriculture abundant. But the flood has not come yet. The fields are dry, waiting. The river is at its normal level, low, contained within its banks. The flood will come. Everyone knows this. The flood always comes. But not yet. The anticipation is not urgent, not anxious, just present. The flood is part of the pattern, as reliable as sunrise, as inevitable as moonrise. The flood will come when it comes, and the fields will transform, and the cycle will continue. Dark fields beyond the river, that is what surrounds you. Fields that in daylight would show some color, brown earth, gray-brown stubble, but at night are simply dark, darker than the sky, darker than the river. Fields, absence of light, as horizontal expanse of nothing, is not empty. The fields are full of potential, full of soil that will grow crops, full of the system that makes that growth possible, full of the labor that has been invested and will be invested again. The fields are not void, are pause, are waiting. You hear different sounds here than in the settlement. No human sounds, no animals except distant frogs from the river, just the sounds of open space. Wind moving across flat ground, the rustle of dry stubble, the occasional crack as a stalk shifts or breaks. The wind is gentle, not strong enough to carry sand, not strong enough to sting exposed skin, just present, moving. The wind at night is different from the wind during the day, cooler, carrying less dust. Moving in patterns determined by the cooling of desert and the presence of the river. You can smell the earth, dry earth, clay, the mineral smell of soil, different from the smell of growing things, different from the smell of water or vegetation, just earth, exposed, waiting. The stars are extraordinarily bright here, away from any structures, away from any fires. The sky is unobstructed, complete. You can see the full vault, the full scatter of stars, The band of the Milky Way is vivid, bright enough to cast the faintest shadow. You lie down, on the dry earth, on your back, looking straight up. The earth is cool against your back, not cold, cool. The temperature is comfortable. The ground is hard but not painful, just solid, supportive. The sky fills your vision. Nothing else exists except stars and darkness. The vastness is overwhelming, infinite. You are small beneath it. The fields are small. The river is small. The entire valley is a small thing beneath the enormity of the cosmos. But the cosmos is not oppressive, not threatening, just vast, indifferent. The stars do not care about fields or floods or the cycles of agriculture. They exist in their own realm, follow their own patterns, illuminate, but do not engage. You think about the farmers who work these fields, who know every channel, every basin, who understand the timing of planting, the management of water, the harvesting of grain. The farmers whose labor feeds the settlements, feeds the temples, feeds the entire civilization that exists along the river. But the farmers are home now, sleeping. The fields do not require their presence at night, do not require attention. The fields simply exist, between seasons, between uses, holding their potential, waiting for water. Dry earth waiting seasonal rise. That is the truth of it. These fields, this soil, the irrigation channels, the basins, all of it is infrastructure for the flood, for the moment when the Nile rises and water spreads, and the fields transform from dry to wet, from barren to fertile, from waiting to receiving, and that moment will come, is coming, not tonight, not tomorrow, but soon, within weeks perhaps. The flood has its own timing, governed by rains far to the south, by snowmelt in mountains you have never seen, by forces beyond local control. But the flood is reliable, has always come, will come again. The fields wait with certainty, not hope, certainty. The flood is not a possibility, it's a fact, future fact, but fact nonetheless. You stand, the earth releases you, walk back toward the river, toward the settlement, toward the structures and the palm trees and the presence of human life, but you carry the field with you, the sense of vastness, of open space, of the agricultural foundation that supports everything else, of the cycle that is paused, but not ended, of the earth waiting patiently for water to come and transform it once again. You walk away from the fields, not back toward the settlement, the other direction, away from the river, away from the green valley, toward the boundary. The ground changes beneath your feet. The soil becomes sandier, less clay, more loose particles. The transition is gradual, but noticeable. The earth is drier here, receives less water, is farther from the river's influence. Vegetation thins. The stubble of harvested crops gives way to nothing, just bare ground. Then scattered desert plants, low shrubs, tough plants adapted to scarcity, plants that need little water, that can survive on the minimal moisture that reaches this far from the river. The desert begins, not with a line, not with a boundary marker, just with the gradual change from valley to desert, from life-sustaining to barely habitable, from the world shaped by the river to the world shaped by sun and sand, absence of water. Sand dunes appear, not large, not the massive dunes of the deep desert, just low formations. Sand accumulated by wind, shaped by wind, moved slowly by wind. The dunes are dark, gray-black in the moonlight, but during the day they would be golden, the color of sand. You climb a low dune. The sand shifts under your feet, not firm like the packed earth of the valley, loose, giving. Each step sinks slightly, requires more effort. The climbing is work in a way that walking on solid ground is not. At the top of the dune, you stop, look back. The valley is visible, a dark line. The river invisible, but its presence marked by the vegetation along its banks. The palm trees, the buildings as darker shapes, the temple complex, the settled world. And beyond it, on the other side of the river, more valley, more cultivation, the green corridor that follows the Nile, the ribbon of life that cuts through the desert, the anomaly that makes civilization possible. But from here, looking back, the scale is different. The valley is narrow, compressed between deserts. The habitable zone is limited, finite. Everything that matters exists within that narrow strip. Everything beyond is barrenness. You turn, face away from the valley, toward the desert interior. The expanse extends farther than you can see. Miles, dozens of miles, hundreds. The desert is vast, covers more area than the valley does, but holds almost nothing, almost no water, almost no life, almost no humans. The sand is cooling. You can feel it. The sand was hot during the day, scorching, too hot to touch, too hot to cross barefoot. But the sand releases heat quickly, has been releasing heat since sunset. By now the surface is cool, still warmer than the air, but cool enough to touch, to sit on. You sit on the sand at the top of the dune. The sand yields slightly, conforms to your shape. The texture is fine, individual grains barely distinguishable, just the collective sense of particulate matter, of countless tiny pieces of rock, of stone broken down to its smallest components. The desert is quiet, quieter than the valley, quieter than the river. There is no water sound here, no frogs, no reeds rustling, no palm fronds moving, just wind when wind exists. Just silence when wind is absent, and the wind is minimal now, just the faintest movement of air, enough to carry sand occasionally, enough to create the softest sound, but not enough to obscure the silence. The silence is profound, deep, the silence of a place where almost nothing happens. Faint wind patterns are visible on the sand, ripples, parallel lines, created by previous winds, by the constant movement of air across sand. The ripples are delicate, precise, mathematical in their regularity. The wind creates art without intention, without awareness. Just through the physics of air moving particles, you run your hand across the surface, feel the ripples. The sand is slightly cool against your palm, smooth. The ripples are subtle, a fraction of an inch high, but distinct. Your hand disturbs them, creates a new pattern, smooth where your hand passed, the old pattern erased. A new one will form when the next wind comes. The sky here is the same as over the valley, the same stars, the same moon, but it feels more present, more dominant, with no trees, no buildings, no structures of any kind, just horizon and sky. The proportion shifts. The sky is vast, the land is vast. You are small between them. Rock formations are visible in the distance, dark shapes, outcrops of harder stone, stone that resisted erosion while softer stone was worn away. The formations are irregular, natural, no human shaping, just geology expressed through millennia of wind and rare rain and the slow breakdown of solid matter. The formations are far, too far to reach in darkness, but visible, marking the landscape, creating the subtle variation that prevents the desert from being completely featureless. The rocks are as old as the river, older, were here before the river carved its valley. Will be here long after. The desert does not move. It only waits. That is the impression, the sense that the desert is not active, not dynamic, just present, existing in a state so close to stasis that change is measured in centuries rather than seasons. The sand moves, but slowly. The rocks erode, but imperceptibly. The desert as the realm of the nearly permanent, but the stasis is not dead, is not absence of life. Life exists here, just rarely, just hidden. Snakes, lizards, insects, rodents, creatures adapted to extreme conditions, to heat, to cold, to scarcity of water. They exist in burrows during the day, emerge at night when temperatures are tolerable. You think about the people who live in the valley, how they perceive the desert as dangerous, as hostile, as the place where water does not exist and therefore life cannot exist. The desert as the opposite of the river, as the boundary that contains and defines the habitable world. But the desert is not hostile, is not dangerous with intention, is simply itself, a landscape shaped by the absence of water, by the presence of sun, by the forces that create aridity. The desert does not threaten, does not welcome, simply exists in its own terms. You notice the temperature dropping further. The desert cools faster than the valley. No water to hold heat, no vegetation to slow radiation, just sand and rock releasing heat directly to the sky. By the coldest part of night, before dawn, the desert will be cold, not freezing, but cold enough to require covering, cold enough to kill if you are unprepared, but that is hours away. Now the temperature is pleasant, cool, comfortable. The time of night when the desert is most habitable, most similar to the valley in terms of comfort. You lie back on the sand. The dune supports you. The sand shifts slightly, finds a stable configuration. You look up. The stars are even more vivid here, away from the moisture of the valley, in the dry air. The light travels without scattering, without distortion. Each star is a sharp point. You think about eternity, about how the desert suggests eternity in a way that the valley does not. The valley changes. The river rises and falls. Crops grow and are harvested. Buildings are built and decay. Life happens. Time is visible. But the desert is nearly changeless. The same dunes, the same rocks, the same vast emptiness. Tomorrow it will look like today. Next year, like this year. The desert is time made visible as stasis, as the approach toward permanent. You close your eyes. The silence is complete. No sound reaches you, just the faint wind, just your own breathing, 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 just your own. Where the fundamental state is stillness, the desert breathes with you, or you breathe with the desert. The distinction becomes unclear. You are present in a place that does not care about your presence, that will be unchanged by your visit, that accepts you without acknowledgement, that releases you without notice. You open your eyes. The stars remain. The sand remains. The distant rocks remain. everything as it was, as it will be. Eventually you will return to the valley, to the river, to the world of water and life and human activity. But for now, you rest at the edge, in the desert, in the quiet, in the vastness that surrounds and defines the narrow ribbon where civilization exists, the desert edge after sunset, cool, silent, eternal, the boundary that makes the valley precious, that makes water valuable, that makes the Nile center of everything. You have walked farther, across more sand, through the cooling desert night, away from the valley edge, deeper into the realm of stone and silence. The plateau rises ahead, not steeply, just a gradual elevation. The desert floor lifting, becoming higher ground. The plateau is rock beneath sand. Solid foundation, the kind of ground that can support weight, that can hold structures, that will not shift or settle. And on the plateau, shapes appear, triangular, massive, rising against the sky. Geometric forms that are not natural, that could not be natural. The angles too precise, the faces too flat, the symmetry too perfect. Pyramids. You approach slowly. The scale is difficult to judge in darkness. Distance is uncertain. The pyramids appear both near and far simultaneously. But as you walk, they grow, reveal their true size, become larger than you realized, larger than seems possible. The nearest pyramid rises from the plateau like a mountain, but no mountain has this shape. No natural formation creates this geometry. 4 triangular faces, meeting at a point, the apex high above, the base vast. The stone is visible in moonlight. Limestone blocks, each block massive, each block fitted to its neighbors. The blocks stack in courses, layer upon layer, rising from ground to apex. Hundreds of courses, thousands of individual blocks, the accumulated labor of thousands of people across decades. The surface is not smooth. Was smooth once, perhaps, covered with fine white limestone, polished, gleaming, but that surface is gone, removed over centuries. Now the core blocks show rougher, weathered. The pyramid is still magnificent, but shows its age. You reach the base. Place your hand on the lowest course of stones. The blocks are taller than you. You cannot see over them, cannot climb without effort. The scale is inhuman, beyond human. The pyramid was built by humans but transcends human scale. The stone is cool, has released most of its heat. The stone absorbed sunlight all day, became hot, stored heat in its mass. But now, hours after sunset, the heat has radiated away. The stone is cool, will be cold by morning. Will need another day of sun to warm again. You walk along the base. The pyramid extends farther than you can see clearly. The base is square, each side hundreds of feet long. The perimeter is vast. Walking around the pyramid would take time, would require sustained effort. The structure occupies enormous space. Other pyramids are visible nearby, smaller, or perhaps just farther away. The plateau holds multiple structures, a complex, a necropolis, the city of the dead. Though you do not think of it that way, you simply see structures, stone, geometry, monumental architecture. The pyramids cast no shadows. The moon is too low. The angle is wrong. The pyramids exist as forms without shadows, just mass, just volume, just the suggestion of solidity against the slightly less solid darkness of the sky. You think about purpose, about why these structures exist. You know they are tombs, houses for the dead. protective shells around burial chambers deep inside. The pyramids preserve bodies, preserve the materials needed for the afterlife, protect against disturbance. But that knowledge feels abstract here. In the darkness, standing beside the stone, the pyramid is not tomb in this moment, is simply structure, simply architecture. The purpose is invisible. Hidden inside, what is visible is form, scale, the physical fact of stone arranged in specific patterns. They do not dominate. That is what strikes you, despite their size. Despite their size, the pyramids do not dominate. They simply exist. They do not impose, do not demand, do not assert. They are present. That is all. Presence without aggression, monumentality without arrogance. The desert accepts them. The plateau holds them. The sky arches over them. The pyramids are features of the landscape, unusual features, human-made features, but features nonetheless, integrated. Part of the whole. You wonder about the builders, about the people who quarried the stone, who transported it, who lifted it, who fitted it, the thousands of workers, the engineers, the overseers, the vision that sustained the project across decades. All of them gone now, dead for generations, centuries. The builders did not see completion. The project was longer than individual lives. People were born, worked on the pyramid, died. The pyramid continued, was completed by others, by people who had not been born when the project began. And now the pyramid stands, outlasting everyone who built it, outlasting their children, their culture, perhaps outlasting memory of the names, the faces, the specific humans who made this possible. But the pyramid itself remains. Stone is more permanent than flesh, than memory, than the civilizations that produce monuments. The stone will stand long after everything else has changed, has faded, has been forgotten. You walk to the eastern face, the direction the sun will rise from. The pyramid is oriented precisely. The faces align with cardinal directions, north, south, east, west. The precision is remarkable, achieved without instruments you would recognize, achieved through observation, through patience, through accumulated knowledge. The eastern face is illuminated slightly more than the others, receives more moonlight. The surface shows more detail. Individual blocks are visible. The joints between them, the weathering, the small imperfections that accumulate over time. An entrance is visible, a dark opening, not at ground level, higher up, several courses up. The entrance leads inside, into passages, into chambers, into the interior that you cannot see and will not enter. The interior belongs to the dead, is sacred, is not for casual exploration. The opening is dark, complete darkness. No light penetrates. The pyramid's interior is separate from the exterior, is its own realm, hidden, protected, eternal night inside while day and night alternate outside. You think about what lies within. Passages descending, then ascending, chambers carved from solid rock, sarcophagi, grave goods, the materials and symbols meant to sustain the deceased in the afterlife, all of it sealed inside stone, protected by mass, by weight, by the sheer difficulty of penetration. But you do not think about treasures, about gold or jewels. That feels too specific, too mundane. The pyramid's interior is mystery, is absence, is the unknown that stone protects. What matters is the protection, not the protected. They endure. That is the word that arrives. Endure. The pyramids do not thrive, do not grow, do not change. They endure, persist, continue. remain, the most basic form of existence, not life, but resistance to non-existence. The stone resists erosion, resists collapse, resists the forces that break down structure, not perfectly, not forever, but for a very long time, long enough that forever and a very long time seem nearly identical. You walk away from the pyramids, back across the plateau, back toward the desert floor. The pyramids remain visible behind you for a long time, dark triangular shapes, silhouettes, growing smaller with distance, but not disappearing, never quite disappearing, always there, on the horizon, marking the plateau, marking the presence of civilization's most permanent expression. The plateau holds other structures too, smaller buildings, temples, causeways. The pyramids are not isolated, are part of a complex, but the pyramids dominate, are the defining features, are what will remain longest, or what will be remembered when everything else has crumbled. You think about time again, about deep time, geological time. The pyramids are young compared to the desert, to the rocks, to the river's valley, but old compared to human life, to kingdoms, to dynasties, to the civilizations that rise and fall and rise again. The pyramids occupy middle time, long enough to seem eternal to humans, short enough to be temporary on geological scales. They exist in the overlap, in the space where human ambition meets geological reality, and in that space they endure, stone-shaped by human hands, arranged by human intention, but ultimately subject to the same forces that shape all stone: erosion, decay, the slow return to formlessness. Not today, not tomorrow, not for millennia, but eventually, inevitably. But that is so far in the future as to be meaningless. For now, for the foreseeable future, for longer than anyone can imagine, the pyramids stand, silent, massive, permanent in all the ways that matter. You reach the desert floor, begin walking back toward the valley, toward the river, toward the world of water and life. The pyramids recede behind you, become smaller, become silhouettes again, become memory, but they remain, always remain, on their plateau, under their sky, enduring through night, through day, through seasons, through centuries. Stone shaped into triangles, triangles that will stand as long as stone can stand. You have returned to the temple complex, not the open courtyards, not the colonnade, the interior spaces. The enclosed halls where stone walls block sky and moonlight cannot enter. The passage is narrow, just wide enough for one person. Two people could not pass each other easily. The walls rise on both sides, stone blocks fitted precisely. The ceiling is stone slabs laid across the walls, heavy, supported by the wall's thickness, by engineering that distributes weight. The passage is dark, not completely dark. Oil lamps burn at intervals, small flames in clay vessels. The vessels are niches cut into the walls. The flames are tiny, just wicks in oil, but they provide light, enough to see, enough to navigate. The light flickers constantly. The flame moves with air currents you cannot feel, but that exist, that flow through the temple, that enter somewhere and exit elsewhere. The flickering creates moving shadows. The walls seem to breathe, to pulse, to be alive, though they are stone. You walk slowly. The floor is stone, smooth, worn by countless feet. The floor is uneven in places, not level. The passage slopes slightly, leading deeper or higher. You cannot tell, just that the floor is not perfectly horizontal. The air here is different from outside, cooler. The stone walls block the desert heat during the day, block the cooling at night, create their own climate, their own temperature, as constant than the external world, cool, stable, unchanging. The air smells of stone, of dust, of oil from the lamps. The smell is old, ancient. The accumulated scent of thousands of years of smoke and stone, and the slow decay of organic materials. Not unpleasant, just present. The smell of enclosed space. Of interior that is never fully ventilated. The passage curves. You follow it. The curve is gentle. You can see ahead only a short distance. The next lamp, the next section of wall. Beyond that, darkness. The passage continues beyond vision, extends farther than you can see. You trust that it leads somewhere, that it does not simply end. Reliefs cover the walls, carved into the stone. Images, figures, hieroglyphs. The carvings are everywhere. Every surface that can be carved has been carved. The passage is not just structure, is also document, is text written in stone. But you can see only fragments. The lamplight illuminates small sections. The rest is shadow. The images merge from darkness as you pass, then disappear back into darkness behind you. The full narrative is invisible. Only pieces, only moments. One section shows a figure, standing, arms raised. The figure is in profile. The style is formal, stylized, not realistic. The body is idealized, perfect proportions. The face is calm. The figure is either human or divine. You cannot tell, perhaps both. Perhaps the distinction is not important here. Another section shows animals, birds, fish. The animals are symbolic, represent something beyond themselves. But what they represent is knowledge you do not fully have. You understand some symbols. Others remain mysterious. The wall holds meanings that are partly accessible, partly hidden. The shadows move as you pass. The flame behind you casts your shadow forward, long shadow, distorted by distance. The shadow climbs the wall ahead, reaches toward the ceiling. Your movement creates the shadow's movement. You and shadow connected, dancing together through the passage. You reach doorway, an opening in the wall, leading to a side chamber. The chamber is small, just a room cut into the stone. No windows, no other entrances. Just this single doorway connecting to the passage. A lamp burns inside. The chamber is dimly visible. The walls are carved like the passage walls. The floor is bare. Nothing rests on it. The chamber is empty, just space. Perhaps it served some function once, held something or someone. Now it is just empty stone room. You continue past. The passage extends. More lamps, more carvings, more stone. The passage is long, very long. The temple's interior is vast. The exterior gives some sense of scale, but inside, the scale is different, is experienced through walking, through time spent in passage, through the accumulation of distance. The stone walls are cool. You place your hand on one as you walk. The surface is smooth. The carving creates texture, raised areas, recessed areas, but the stone itself is smooth, polished by time, by hands, by the accumulated touch of people moving through this space across centuries. The ceiling lowers. The passage narrows slightly. You are moving deeper into the temple's interior, away from the entrances, away from the outside world, into the protected core, the sacred heart. More chambers appear. On both sides, small rooms, each one unique, each one serving some purpose in the temple's function, storage, preparation, ritual. The specific purposes are not clear, but the organization is apparent. The temple is not random, is structured, is designed according to principles you can sense but not fully articulate. The lamplight creates strange effects, throws shadows that seem like figures, creates depth where there is only flat surface, makes the static appear dynamic. The carvings seem to move in the flickering light, seem alive, seem almost to step off the walls, but they are stone, remain stone. The movement is illusion, created by light and shadow, and the human brain's tendency to see motion, to see life, to project consciousness onto the inanimate. You hear your footsteps, soft. The stone absorbs sound, does not echo strongly, just creates a muted return. Your presence is audible but quiet. The temple accepts your movement, does not amplify it, does not announce it. Other sounds exist, the faint crackle of lamp flames, the settling of stone. The temple makes sounds, small sounds, the expansion and contraction of materials, the shift of weight, the acoustic evidence of mass and structure existing in physical space. The passage opens, widens, becomes a hall. The ceiling rises. Space expands. Columns appear, not as massive as the exterior columns, but significant, supporting the ceiling, creating rhythm, dividing the space without fully enclosing it. More lamps burn here. The hall is better lit than the passage. You can see more. The carvings are more visible. The complexity is apparent. The walls are covered in narrative, in text, in the accumulated expression of religious and cultural knowledge. An altar stands at one end of the hall, stone, table-like, for offerings, for rituals. The altar is bare now, no offerings present. No active ritual, just the structure, the prepared space, waiting for use. You do not approach the altar. The hall's center belongs to priests, to those who conduct rituals, to those authorized to interact with the sacred. You remain at the edges, observer, visitor, respectful of boundaries even when no one forces them. The hall is quiet, the same deep quiet as the rest of the temple interior. The stone walls block external sound, create isolation, create the sense that this space is separate from the world, is other, is the realm where normal rules do not fully apply, where the sacred becomes physically present, but the sacred is not evident now. No ceremony happening, no priests chanting, no offerings burning. Just empty stone hall, lit by oil lamps, holding its carvings and columns and the weight of its purpose, but not expressing that purpose, just waiting, patient, ready for when human activity returns and meaning is assigned again. You think about the permanence of the stone versus the impermanence of the flames. The stone has been here for centuries, will be here for centuries more, but each lamp flame is temporary, burns for hours, then goes out, is relit, burns again, goes out again. The cycle repeats endlessly. New oil, new wicks, new flames, but always flames, always light in the darkness. The flames serve the stone, illuminate it, reveal it, make it accessible. But the flames are servants, are temporary workers in the service of permanent structure. The temple does not need the flames to exist, but humans need the flames to use the temple, to navigate it, to read it, to participate in what it offers. You walk back toward the entrance, retrace your path through passages, past chambers, past carvings, past lamps. The journey out is the same as the journey in, but reversed. The same stones, the same flames, but experienced differently. Because exit is different from entry. Because leaving creates different awareness than arriving. The passage slopes upward now. You are climbing, moving toward the surface, toward the outside. The air changes slightly, becomes less stale. The smell of the interior mixes with the smell of the exterior. Stone and night air, interior and exterior beginning to blend. You reach the doorway, step through. The courtyard opens before you. Vast after the narrow passages, bright after the dim interiors. The moon and stars provide more light than seem possible, while inside, the temple interior remains behind you. Dark passages, stone halls, oil lamps flickering in isolation, the sacred spaces waiting for morning, for priests, for the resumption of religious life. But the spaces are not empty, in waiting, are full of purpose, full of accumulated meaning, full of the presence of centuries of ritual and prayer, and the human attempt to connect with forces larger than themselves. The lamps continue burning. The flames continue flickering. The shadows continue moving. The stone continues being stone, cool, permanent, patient, holding its interior spaces, holding its meanings, holding its own version of eternity. You have returned to the riverbank, to the edge where water meets land, where the Nile flows past the settlements, past the fields, past the temples and pyramids, and all the constructed world. The water is still, more still than before. The current continues, always continues, but the surface seems calmer, smoother, reflects more clearly. The Nile at its most quiet, its most restful state. The reeds stand unmoving, the papyrus stalks, the tall vegetation that lines the banks. No wind moves them, no current disturbs them. They stand vertical, perfect, vertical. As if grown that way and frozen in position, you sit on the bank, on sand and earth. The ground is cool, not cold, cool in the pleasant way of night temperatures. The river is before you, dark water, moving water, but appearing still in this moment. The reflection of stars is perfect, each point of light in the sky as its counterpart in the water. The reflection is nearly as bright as the original. The water has become mirror. The boundary between sky and water is uncertain. You could be looking up or down. The effect is the same. The horizon is faint, just barely visible. The line where land meets sky, or where sky meets land. The distinction seems meaningless. Horizon is just the limit of vision, the edge of what can be perceived. Beyond it, the world continues, but invisibly. Quiet anticipation, that is what you feel, not urgency, not excitement, just a sense of waiting, of something approaching, not immediately, not today, but soon. The river holds this sense, conveys it, makes it present without words. The flood will come. You know this. Everyone knows this. The annual inundation, the rising, the Nile swelling beyond its banks, spreading across the floodplain, covering the fields, transforming the valley into a vast lake, depositing silt, renewing the soil, making another year of agriculture possible. The flood is as certain as the sunrise, as predictable as the moon's phases, has come every year for longer than memory, for longer than the oldest stories. The flood is not hope or wish, is fact, is future certainty, but not yet. The river is still low, still contained, still flowing in its normal channel. The banks are exposed, the fields are dry, The irrigation channels are empty. The valley shows the earth, shows the division between river and land clearly, shows the geography that the flood temporarily erases. You think about the signs, the measurements, the nilometers at temples, stone structures with markings that measure the river's height, that track its rise, that announce when the flood is coming. The nilometers are watched carefully, daily. The measurements are recorded, are compared to previous years, are used to predict the flood's timing and magnitude. But you do not need nilometers to sense what is coming. The air carries it. The water carries it. The accumulated knowledge of living beside the river carries it. You can feel the approach, not in your body, in your understanding, in the certainty that comes from observing patterns for a lifetime. A flood will be good, or adequate, or insufficient. The height varies. Some years it is too high, destroys structures, creates problems. Some years it is too low, does not reach all the fields, creates hunger. Most years it is right, adequate, sufficient, the flood that allows life to continue. This year will be adequate. You sense it, cannot prove it, cannot demonstrate it, just know it. The way you know things that come from observation and experience, rather than explanation. The flood will come, will be sufficient. The cycle will continue. The water surface is perfect stillness now. No ripples, no disturbance. The river has become mirror, has become sky. The stars float in water as surely as they float in space. Double universe, above and below, identical and connected. You think about the river's journey. The Nile begins far to the south, in highlands you have never seen, in lakes and tributaries that feed the main channel. The river flows north, through deserts, through valleys, through cataracts where water breaks into rapids, through everything that separates source from sea and carries water, carries silt, carries nutrients, carries the possibility of life. The river is not just water, is transportation system, is resource, is the thread that connects distant places, that makes trade possible, that makes communication possible, that makes empire possible, but also makes flood possible. The rains that fall far to the south eventually reach here, weeks later, months later. The water accumulates, the tributaries feed the main channel, the river rises, and the flood happens. Here, far from where the water originated, but directly connected to those distant rains. The connection is invisible, is geographic, is hydrological, but it exists. It makes the Nile Valley dependent on places and weather systems beyond its control, beyond its influence. The civilization here exists at the mercy of rains that fall elsewhere, that may or may not fall, that determine abundance or scarcity. But the rains have fallen, are falling. We reach here in time. The flood is coming. The anticipation is not worry, is not anxiety, is just awareness, recognition that the pattern is proceeding, that the cycle is continuing, that what should happen will happen. The reeds remain unmoving, perfect stillness. The river remains mirror-like, perfect reflection. Everything is in a state of suspension, of pause, of waiting without urgency. Time has slowed, or seems to have slowed. Each moment extends, stretches, becomes longer than a moment before. This is the deepest point of night, the furthest from sun. Dawn is hours away, but approaching. Inevitable. The sun will rise. The day will begin. The cycle of light and heat will start again, but not yet. For now, deep night holds everything. You notice your breathing, slow, deep, calm. Your body has matched the rhythm of the river, of the night. You breathe with the same patient pace that the river flows, the same unhurried progression from one moment to the next, the river's surface. Still, the reeds, unmoving, the horizon, faint, everything is exactly as it should be. Everything is in its place. Everything is waiting in the way that the natural world waits, without impatience, without desire for change, just existing in the present state until conditions change and a new state becomes necessary. But those conditions have not changed yet. The sun is still below the horizon, the flood still to come. The waiting continues, patient, certain. The waiting is not empty, is full of potential, full of what will be, but is not yet. The river continues flowing, continues carrying water northward, continues being the Nile, constant in its change, changing in its constancy. The paradox that defines this place, the civilization built on a river that never stops moving, but follows the same pattern endlessly, change and repetition as the same thing, as different aspects of the same reality. Before the river rises, there is this stillness, this reflection, this perfect moment of balance, when the valley is dry, but will be wet, when the fields are empty, but will be fertile, when now holds future without yet being future, the in-between time, the pause, the breath before change, and you are here, present, witnessing. Part of it, the river before you, the stars above and below, the certainty of flood approaching, but not arrived. The night holding everything in suspension until morning comes or flood comes, or whatever comes next, to break the stillness and move time forward into its next phase. The sky is changing. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just gradually. The black is less absolute. The darkness is thinning. The stars are fading, not disappearing, not yet, just becoming less bright, less dominant, yielding to something that is approaching. The horizon is visible now, clearly visible. The line where land meets sky, the mountains to the east, dark shapes, solid masses, but distinct now, separate from the sky. The sky itself is lightening, from black to dark blue, from dark blue to blue-gray. The river is responding. The water is no longer black, is becoming visible as water rather than as void. Dark blue, gray blue. The color is subtle, muted, but present. The river is revealing itself, showing its surface, showing that it is liquid rather than solid darkness. The reflection of stars is fading. The stars themselves are fading. The brightest ones remain, but most have disappeared, absorbed into the lightening sky, no longer visible. The sky has claimed them, has hidden them, has made them invisible, though they still exist. The reeds are becoming visible, not just as dark vertical shapes, but as actual reeds. You can see individual stalks, can see the seed heads, can see the texture of vegetation. The reeds are dark green, will be brighter green in full daylight, but are visible now as living plants rather than abstract shapes. The riverbank is revealing itself. The sand, the earth, the line where water meets land. During the night, the boundary was uncertain. Now it is clear, visible. The geography is returning. The features of landscape are emerging from the uniform darkness. Palm trees are visible against the sky, their trunks, their fronds, silhouetted still, but distinct, recognizable. The trees mark the settlement, mark the boundary between river and cultivation, between water and human habitation. buildings appear. The mud brick homes, the temple complex in the distance. The structures are still dark, still in shadow, but visible, present. The architecture is returning to the world, is becoming accessible again to vision. The pyramids are faint on the horizon, distant, but recognizable. The triangular shapes, the distinctive geometry. The monuments that seem so present at night are now distant, reduced, made small by daylight's approach, but still there, still visible, still marking the desert plateau. The sky continues to lighten. The blue-gray is becoming lighter blue, pale blue, the blue of early morning, the blue that is not yet full daylight, but is no longer night, the transitional blue, the color that belongs only to dawn and dusk, temporary, fleeting, beautiful in its impermanence. Pink appears at the horizon, faint, just a touch, the promise of the sun. The sun is still below the horizon, still invisible, but its light is reaching the sky, is illuminating the atmosphere, is creating color where there was only darkness. The pink spreads, becomes orange, still faint, still subtle, but growing. The color is at the horizon only. The rest of the sky is blue, but the horizon is warm, is bright, is announcing what is coming. The river reflects the colors. The water is no longer mirror black, is becoming mirror blue, mirror pink where the horizon light touches. The river is returning to its daylight character, reflective, responsive to sky, showing its relationship to light and atmosphere. Birds begin calling, the first sounds of morning, water birds, herons perhaps, or ibises. The calls are brief, sporadic. Just the earliest birds, the ones that wake before dawn, that announce the coming day to those who are still sleeping. More birds join. The calls increase, overlap, create a soundscape. Acoustic texture of morning. The birds are waking, are beginning their day, are searching for food, are establishing territories, are living their bird lives in the ways that birds do. The temple's silhouettes are softening. The sharp edges are becoming less sharp. Details are emerging. You can see columns, see courtyards, see the structure rather than just mass. The temple is returning to its complexity, is revealing its architecture as light increases. The settlement is stirring. Smoke begins to rise. Thin streams, from chimneys, from cooking fires being lit. The first people are waking, are beginning their days, are preparing food, are starting the rituals that structure morning. The settlement is transitioning from sleep to waking, gradually, person by person, household by household. The temperature is noticeable. The coldest part of night has passed. The air is beginning to warm, slowly. The sun is not yet up, but the approach of sun is enough. The air responds, begins its daily warming, begins the cycle that will peak in afternoon heat and decline into evening cooling. The horizon is bright now, orange, gold. The colors are vivid, beautiful. The sky is a gradient. Dark blue at the zenith, lighter blue toward the horizon, orange and gold where the sun will appear. The colors blend smoothly, create a continuum, the sky as canvas for light. The water is lightening, dark blue to medium blue, still dark compared to daylight, but no longer night dark. The river is becoming visible as river, as water that flows and reflects and holds life. The character of the Nile is returning, the personality, the specific qualities that define this river. The fields are visible now, the dry earth, the stubble, the irrigation channels, the geometry of agriculture. all of it clear, visible. The valley is returning to its daytime appearance. The features that were hidden are revealed. The land is showing itself. The desert is visible too, beyond the fields, the sand, the dunes, the distant rocks. The desert that was invisible at night is now visible, present. The boundary between cultivation and barrenness is clear, the line that defines the valley, that shows where the river's influence ends. The sun touches the horizon, not the full disk, just the top edge. A sliver of brilliant light. The sun is rising, not metaphorically, actually, physically. The rotation of the earth is bringing the sun back into view. The cycle is continuing. Day is beginning. The light is intense. Even the small visible portion is bright, brighter than moon, brighter than stars, bright enough that looking directly is difficult. The sun's power is immediate, present. The light spreads, touches mountain peaks first, illuminates the highest points while the valley remains in shadow. The light moves down, touches the upper parts of temples, touches the pyramids, touches the palm fronds, gradually descending as the sun rises. The valley is being illuminated from top to bottom, from high to low. The progression is visible, measurable, the advance of light into shadow. The river sparkles. The surface catches light, reflects it, creates dancing highlights. The water is no longer mirror, is moving surface, is textured, is alive with the interaction of light and liquid. The river at dawn, beautiful, vital, the source and center of everything. Colors appear, the true colors. The mud brick is tan, the fields are brown. The reeds are green, the palm fronds are green, the sky is blue, the water is blue. The world is no longer grayscale, no longer simplified by darkness. The full palette is returning, the complexity of color, the richness of the visible spectrum. The settlement is fully awake now. Smoke rises from many fires. Voices are audible, distant, faint, but present. People are moving, beginning work. The day has started for the human population. The transition from sleep to waking is complete. Life is resuming. The sun continues rising. More of the disk is visible. The light is spreading, reaching lower, touching the valley floor. The direct sunlight is warm, noticeably warm. The heating has begun. The temperature will rise all day, will peak in afternoon, will create the heat that makes shade necessary and rest inevitable. But that is hours away. Now is dawn, the beginning, the moment of transition from night to day, from rest to activity, from darkness to light, the daily rebirth, the eternal return, the cycle that has repeated since the river began flowing, since the valley was settled, since humans learned to live here. Before the Nile rose, the empire rested. That is the truth of it. The civilization exists in relationship with the river. The river floods, the empire adapts. The river recedes, the empire adapts. The cycle structures everything, defines everything, makes everything possible. The flood is coming, will come, is certain, but has not come yet. Before the flood, there is this dawn, this transition, this moment when the night releases and the day begins, and everything continues as it continued and will continue. The river flows, the sun rises, the valley wakes. The cycle proceeds, eternal, unchanging, the foundation on which everything rests, the pattern that gives structure and meaning and survival to the civilization that exists along the banks of the Nile. The night is over, the day begins. The world transforms from darkness to light, from mystery to clarity. from rest to activity, and the Nile continues flowing, north, always north, carrying water, carrying silt, carrying life, carrying the empire forward into another day, another season, another year of the endless cycle that defines this place. The light grows stronger, the colors grow brighter. The valley is fully visible now. The architecture, the fields, the river, the desert beyond, all of it clear, all of it present, all of it waiting for the flood that will come and transform everything, and then recede and allow the cycle to begin again. Before the Nile rose, the empire rested, and now, as dawn breaks, the empire wakes, ready for another day, ready for the flood when it comes, ready for whatever the river brings. The empire built on water, the civilization that breathes with a river, the world that exists because the Nile exists and flows and floods and makes life possible in a place that would otherwise be desert. The morning has arrived, the day has begun, and the river continues, eternal, constant, the thread that connects past and future, the foundation of everything. The Nile,